They were yelling, they were screaming, there were signs.
Good things?
Good things. We saw a few bad things, but predominantly the good things outweighed the bad, I would say, 1,000 to 1.
Historical authenticity.
Fuck you, last dad!
Don't you f***ing dare.
Something wrong, Miss Roman.
Always serving up the top sirloin of bullshit.
Black Ops 6 is out, and for the first time since Modern Warfare 2019, I played a Call of Duty game at launch. I originally thought about reviewing BO6, but what have I already said everything that I could have wanted to say about it already. So I want to look at Call of Duty more largely, or more broadly, since this series has gone from hotshot daddy lawyer winning the case of the century to pop culture sensation famous for the things it does. Call of Duty wasn't always a pop culture entertainment icon with fancy cinematics, horrendous Marvel-like one-liners.
I'm afraid you are not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. This is a game for adults, not school children.
What the f?
And ridiculous Fast and Furious plots about saving the world in Dubai, or whatever high-roller big-money destination.
You CIA types are all the same.
I think that started with Black Ops 2.
Tell me, why does he hate us so much?
Black Ops 2 was very good, but that was kind of the problem. It was the first campaign to not just be cinematic, but also present itself like a movie. A playable movie with Call of Duty gameplay sprinkled in. And don't get me wrong, I liked Black Ops 2. I think its branching storylines and focus on consequences is very enjoyable, but it is undoubtedly very different, starting with being the first campaign to have hit markers crammed into it. It was arguable that this is the game that transitioned from Call of Duty's military fiction into straight-up military fantasy, and that is more or less when I had definitely moved on to playing Battlefield almost exclusively, because that felt authentic and Black Ops 2 did not. And when Battlefield stopped being authentic, guess what? I moved on from that as well. And since, I haven't been too much into multiplayer games.
I don't like anyone.
But shoot, I jumped into the action for Black Ops 6, and I think this was magical because I walk into this carefully thinking, does he want to be shooting from cover? And I didn't do bad at all. The ground must be real slippery around here because everyone's always falling and slipping, and you can just pew 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 get them while they're down. Someone even called me a camper, and I said, why yes sir, how'd you know that? I go camping once a month, I love nature. But frankly, after about 2 hours of multiplayer, I had more than enough, and I don't think I'm gonna pick it up again. Because I don't think it's loyal to its single player, the multiplayer, and multiplayer just goes out of control without a single player campaign to serve as the foundation for its lore. Remember Call of Duty 4? Sure, it pioneered Call of Duty's highly rewarding and addictive multiplayer formula, but it also remained really authentic to its single-player factions, even going as far as making the aircraft for airstrikes and attack helicopter killstreaks faction correct. The Neo-Soviets strike with MiGs and Hinds, while the Coalition attack with F-15s and Cobras. Authentically, this is why the over-the-top action brought to the table by Call of Duty felt correct, even if it wasn't really realistic by any means. It felt grounded, even if it was arcadey, and that has been missing from most Call of Duties recently. I've come to notice that a good way for me to predict if I'm gonna like a Call of Duty game is if they're pushing historians and military advisors in their marketing campaign.
We maintain the tradition of authenticity that's always been the trademark of Call of Duty.
Because those people usually make sure that nothing is too out of place or unacceptably out of place. And Body Odor 6 in both multiplayer and the single player campaign is absolutely everywhere. They straight up didn't give a fuck. Here's an example, back to Call of Duty 4. In competent militaries, armored units usually rely on their infantry to lead the way through a possible ambush site, because if the armor goes alone or first into an ambush without dismounts to cover, they're gonna get hit, and if the unit loses their firepower advantage, everyone's gonna die. You need many guns shooting at the many threats if you want to survive and repel an ambush. So in War Pig, when the tank commander says,
Bravo 6, possible ambush area up front. We'll move up when you've cleared the area ahead of us. Over.
It not only makes perfect sense, but it also feels correct even if you don't know much about this stuff, because little details like this matter. Correct dialogue matters. Authentic feeling combat matters. You don't need to be a simulator to be immersive. You just need to be authentic. And despite Call of Duty's multiplayer being arcadey, the campaigns before Black Ops 2 were very immersive with minimalist HUDs and lots of explosive set pieces. They put action and authenticity before everything, even story, even cinematics, with one exception. More on that one later. And yes, perhaps too many explosive set pieces eventually, because as Call of Duty got more and more popular and thrust itself past Halo as the top FPS and into pop culture lore, authenticity didn't seem to matter as much as spectacle. Modern Warfare 2 and 3 turned into playable military Michael Bay movies, and I do like them. This stuff was incredible in its day. They were definitely a departure from the Ridley Scott feel that Call of Duty 4 had. The original Black Ops was the most cinematic yet, and the first Call of Duty to show you the playable character's face, believe it or not. At the time, that was very exciting because before Black Ops, we had never had such a cinematic Call of Duty game, and Treyarch was always better than Infinity Ward with their stories, in my opinion. Yet Infinity Ward were better at innovating in gameplay. Until their founding leads, Vince Zampella and Jason West, split from Activision during the release of Modern Warfare 2, which is what thrust Treyarch as possibly the most important developer in Call of Duty past that point. Activision's fight with Infinity Ward's founders was so bad that I think that Infinity Ward intended to separate Modern Warfare from Call of Duty, and they had an ugly fight with the publisher. I remember the drama at the time, and here's a fun fact. To this day, if I load my Modern Warfare 2 copy into my PS3, Call of Duty is not on the title. It's also the smallest Call of Duty print on any of the box arts. And with Treyarch at the reins, this is the actual pivot point for Call of Duty, and I was there for it all, so listen good, you beautiful muckfuggets. Here's a boomer story, because most of the people talking about Call of Duty now can't even recognize the score being played in the background. I was there before Modern Warfare came out, before Call of Duty 4, for Call of Duty 2, Big Red 1, Treyarch's first ever release. It wasn't Call of Duty 3, it was this game. And I was a preteen who had gone from thinking that 007 spy shooters like Nightfire were the coolest thing you could play, to being thrust into a very mature storyline of a single squad in the US Army's 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red 1. I didn't know what Band of Brothers was at the time, but the cast from that show brought these characters to life, and I became really endeared to my squad mates. Let me show you something cool. I grabbed a brand new, sealed copy of this game just for you. Manuals back then were like a little game guide, so you gotta... Oh, that hit the spot. You got a lot of background information about the game and its characters before you play the game, and it makes you feel like you're a part of the group when seeing them interact with each other. Being in the know regarding the inside jokes of the squad.
Took them all out, every one, by myself.
That story gets more ridiculous every time you tell it. You know that?
Hey, it's true.
Convincing yourself that Brooklyn is your best friend because he's a baseball fan, just like you.
But I gotta get back. I got tickets to the Yankee games. They're playing the Red Sox. I got box seats.
Ah, shut the hell up, Bloomfield.
And Kelly is a dork, but he's our dork.
Brooklyn, you idiot! You're gonna get us all killed! I said cover me! I can't work like this!
And the smartest soldier in the squad. Smith can fix anything. Hawk is the best squad leader in the entire Big Red 1.
Glad you're paying attention, Private.
And that Vic is the toughest, meanest soldier in the... Oh no.
Let's go, on me!
Medic! You
Oh god, no!
No more.
The tone of these games was always about having the player experience battles, combat, the fraternity of your squad, the brothership. What is a brothership? The brotherhood. It's brotherhood. And the writing of these games reflected that. It was war movie writing, and its one-liners are a thing of beauty.
On us, and we can't let them down.
How come everyone's always counting on us, Sarge?
Because we're the infantry, Corporal, and God loves the infantry!
The gameplay was immersive, not arcadey, and as a result, you felt like an average soldier overcoming the pressure of combat. The locations, uniforms, weapons were at least 90% accurate with a little bit of room for creative liberty, but they were all period correct, faction correct, and correct to the location. There was a clear and obvious responsibility toward authenticity. All of the things that I just said are also true for the original Call of Duty, which is, in my opinion, the best of the entire series still. It was revolutionary for its time, it was full of surprises, the campaign was massive, the characters had a lot of charm, especially for their time period, and it changed everything because it started this franchise. And if we fast forward to the current decade, the sad thing is that just before Warzone was established as bigger than Call of Duty during the COVID live service craze, Modern Warfare 2019 and Black Ops Cold War were doing everything right. Even most of the one-liners were also spot on.
Upstairs, let's move.
Get you there, Park.
Crude, but effective.
Well, mostly. Sure, they're still not perfect. Like, a big one, and it stands out like a sore thumb, is that Marines have flags in their uniforms, and they also are in jungle boots. What's next? Black boots, like Battlefield 3?
What are those?
If you overlook the little things like that, it does feel mostly authentic. It was like Call of Duty was mostly back where it should be, and the gunplay was unlike anything we had seen in shooters before. I remember everyone being blown away by this new gunfighting system. Infinity Ward was back at being innovative again. They absolutely nailed the animations, the ragdolls looked pretty gritty and somewhat realistic, the impact effects, the cover system, oh man, the gunfighting was so brutal. Call of Duty was back at feeling real despite not being realistic, if you know what I mean. But there were also historical references to real battles like Benghazi. The Russian military is the enemy again, so Russophobia is back. Gritty gunplay, authentic weapons, heavy reliance on cover. God, I love it. And Cold War mostly kept that going too, with more Russophobia.
No one likes the Russians, huh?
Vietnam missions, like real battles, authentic weapons. These games didn't beat around the bush for 20 minutes before thrusting you into the action. They just put you in it. They put the action first, and they highlighted the things that I love from Call of Duty. But the game's changed ever since Warzone became God. Vanguard came, where the Japanese have Sturmgewehrs and there's no M1 Garand or Thompson in the American missions. Why?
Do you speak Japanese?
And the Germans in North Africa have Volkssturmgewehrs, where the Volkssturmgewehr is actually portrayed as a Volkssturmgewehr, and that's just so wrong, and it makes my blood boil because it's... Vanguard just felt like a comic book adaptation of World War II with Avenger-like characters.
If this is so important, why did they not send an army?
They did. The six of us.
Cringe one-liners.
I shoot Nazis. They die.
It certainly had its moments. I'm not gonna dismiss that. It made me feel things from time to time, but it was a poor representation of World War II despite having many good ideas. It wanted to highlight these overlooked warriors of the Second World War, but it just doesn't focus in on them, unfortunately. They're shown off rather superficially. I can't say much for the Modern Warfare reboot sequels because I skipped them, except for Modern Warfare 3, which I actually just played because it's on Game Pass now, and why not? But the shocking thing about that game is that it introduced these open combat missions, which are a lot like Medal of Honor. You know, the very thing that the original Call of Duty was named as a killer of. The mission format of Modern Warfare 3, their open combat missions, is basically how Medal of Honor missions work. I can't believe that we've gone full circle with this atrocity. It really is an atrocity. And now, BO6.
Not gonna head from this far out.
Body Odor 6 is a game that, for sure, is very polished for the most part. It's neat, it's full of surprises, even though some of those surprises I didn't really like. I would like zombies to stay in zombies, if you understand what I mean. But again, it's written more like Marvel movies or even like a Fast and Furious movie. Like it's just a gang of Fast and Furious badasses who do badass things in cutscenes. And really, they run their mouths all game long, just spewing cringe one-liners instead of running their gun in gameplay. Speaking about running their gun, remember this ridiculous Kastov reload from Modern Warfare 2 and 3? That's known as the Iraqi reload because the Iraqi army drilled this technique into their soldiers to bypass some feeding and magazine compatibility issues in their AKs because of bad tolerances. It's actually not a cool tactical reload, it's a cheap improvisation. So of course, it really makes good sense that the Iraqi AKs that you pick up from the Iraqi army in the Gulf War missions run perfectly fine with no feeding issues whatsoever, and there's no need to improvise an Iraqi reload. Come on, that's the one place where it would have fit. I don't disagree that the right player in the right mindset could consider a Black Ops 6 playthrough a 9 out of 10. To be fair, Black Ops 6 is a little bit like 13, a game that had no right to be so enjoyable for me, but I still loved it. So, especially considering that there hasn't been much of genuine quality in this generation starved of quality single-player shooters, thankfully that's about to change with S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, I can see someone enjoying Black Ops 6's campaign. But it's not what I want it to be, and that's why I didn't like it all that much. And despite my complaints with it, it isn't bad, nor is it a waste of time. I just want Call of Duty to feel like Steven Spielberg productions again. I'm not a fan at all of these arcadey Warzone features like shoving plate carriers into your shirt. Just make the campaign more immersive. I'd like that. For example, there's a money system that you unlock these safes for and pick up cash around missions, and they tie into a system about upgrading your base, because if you walk around the Rook, which is your base, you can see a training facility, you can see a whole bunch of stuff. It's very explorable. So I thought, oh cool, we can build a training facility where we can test weapons, perhaps build classes for our missions, so we can walk into missions with a setup that we've created, and have a training course that's kind of like the cargo ship or the pit from Modern Warfare 1 and 2. And I was thinking that it was going to be so cool once I unlocked it, but it turns out that the money is just for buying perks. You buy perks, and that's it. Huh? I'm also kind of upset that Black Ops 6 hyped up Desert Storm and featured it a lot, but it doesn't actually put you in Desert Storm as a grunt. It doesn't put you in Desert Storm. Black Ops 1 put you in Khe Sanh and in the Tet Offensive and in other important Vietnam missions. I think Cold War did too. But Black Ops 6 wanted to take an even more secret and more covert direction. And the thing is, that would have been fine because Adler is a pretty good character and he's set up perfectly to have us join him and do some fucked up CIA shit.
Remember, no Russian.
Speaking of the CIA, thank you for funding this channel. And no, I'm not talking about intimidation tactics when I'm mentioning the CIA. I'm talking about doing some tyrannicide, funding rebellions in post-Soviet commie states. Fucked up CIA shit, why not? But instead we're focused on taking down a secret army that has a real chemical weapon, and it's so bad. The campaign focuses on showing us why it's so bad, but the thing is, it's so forgettable that I really forgot the name of the weapon and the organization. It's the same idea as Perseus from Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War 5, which is disappointing to me again. It's cheap. I think it's just cheap. But I think in my most recent booting of the game, which I did to try the multiplayer, which I'm not gonna do anymore because I wasn't dropped as a baby, but it made me put together why it made me feel disappointed and unfulfilled despite the game technically being good. The new Call of Duty games are shaping themselves into the typical pop culture package thing. Fun fact, Marvel movies don't make their money through the movies. They make their big bucks through selling merch. The same goes for the Kardashians. Sure, Daddy started making the family name famous by winning a virtually impossible case. So impossible that even he was shocked. But he died shortly after, so the family name was reinvented into reality TV because one Kardashian did something quite audacious. And that was huge! Everybody wanted to keep up with the Kardashians, everybody wanted in on what Kardashians were doing, but today, the real money isn't in lawyering, the real money isn't in reality TV. The real money is in the merch. And while Call of Duty does have real-world merch, We all know that the real merch I'm talking about is the content drops, the skins, the cosmetics. Ever since COVID filled Warzone servers to an astronomical level, Call of Duty has seemingly changed completely in direction and priorities one more time. In the same way that Black Ops 2 introduced military fantasy into Call of Duty, Warzone cemented a new identity. Likely because the business isn't game sales anymore and the product isn't the games. That's why they don't launch as separate games. They launch into a single, whatever this Call of Duty HQ thing is. The games are now a platform for the skins, the microtransactions, which is the real business. And the thing is, I'm too old to complain about this, so I'm just gonna accept it and play something else until hopefully Call of Duty does something I like again. I'll know because they'll have the military advisors in the trailers. That's usually when they want to turn the ship around and do something authentic again. So yeah, while the recent games do have some incredible moments, amusing Easter eggs, and the first playthrough for each one of them has kind of been a fun time, even with Vanguard and Modern Warfare 3. The thing is that once you're done looking at the missions list, looking for something to replay, how do you feel? What do you feel? Ask yourself that. And a lot of their missions are just too long, with my favorite parts usually at the end, meaning that you have to slog through 20 minutes of stealth and poker and whatever and maybe more, moving the plot forward so you can actually get to the stuff that you play Call of Duty for.
It's violence.
Not only that, but more and more it feels like action movie action and not combat, or at least not war movie action. Arcadey influences from Warzone like health bars, armored enemies, inventory bloat. This atrocious omni-movement thing where everything's slippery and you slide your way through everything is making Call of Duty just another pop culture thing that everyone knows about because it's popular and not because of its merits. It's a Kardashian, a name that was originally known for Robert Kardashian's unbelievable achievement as a lawyer, despite his client's dark side, of course, to a pop culture thing that everyone knows because it's popular, and not necessarily because it's good at anything other than being popular.
But I don't see any better options, and I'm running out of bullets.
And that's it, my friends. I will not speak anymore about Call of Duty for a while. Big thank you to the real CIA, the Kant Intelligence Agency. To show my gratitude, I will be giving away a S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2 PC key to a lucky CIA member on launch day. I'll post the details in the member section, so if you're inclined, feel free to join. I have nothing else to say right now.